Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and today we have a lot to go over because we're not just talking craft predictions, but we have to get updates in the overall Oscar race. We also have to answer your questions out there, and just some fun, friendly banter to go along here. So if you want to be included with that, make sure to comment down below because we want to answer all of your questions and hear some of your input into the Oscar race, as well as like and subscribe, all that stuff that helps us grow and keeps you connected with what we're doing. But Matt, what has changed since the last time that we talked just 1 week ago?
Well, the major thing is that the Cannes Film Festival has released their lineup, which means we're getting our first look at this year's international contenders and seeing sort of what's there that's unexpected, what was expected that's not showing up. And I think the biggest change, at least for me, is that I've been going around saying that Emmanuel is going to be the big European film of the year, and it's not at Cannes. It could still be at Venice, but the rumors are Cannes hated it and rejected it. So I'm feeling much less confident in Emmanuel, and that's leaving me scrambling, being like, what do I think an international contender could be this year? And so I think the big thing that's changed for me lately is that I have hopped over to the Andrea Arnold Bird train as my new pick for that sort of European selection.
Overall, I guess going into Cannes, I was kind of like you. I had one film I was eyeing, that was The End, and just like Emmanuel, that did not show up. It's most likely going to Venice. However, both of those films I feel like really need to show out big at Cannes to get the early buzz, to show like, hey, we are real contenders as we go deeper into the year, as these other bigger films debut, especially at Venice. So I'm backing off of that at the moment. Currently, I don't really have a Cannes movie. Overall, I'm just kind of waiting to see what presents itself instead of just throwing a dart and hoping whatever I pick ends up turning out right. Just because this year, as much as people want to talk about is a weak year or it doesn't have many contenders, I think this year has a lot of more early contenders than last year did. Because if you go back to this point last year, we kind of had 9 of our 10 Best Picture nominees in our top, let's say, 15, 20. And this year, I feel like we definitely don't have that at this moment. So, I don't know. I just feel like I'm putting some stuff I feel safer, better about in my 10, even knowing that I'm going to have to take something out after the festival ends.
Fair enough. I mean, that's a fine way to approach it. I like to try and pinpoint those surprise contenders.
You know what? Maybe I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people out there are wrong about the next movie we're talking about, Civil War, which officially came out to theaters. I saw it the other day. Definitely don't get the angle where anyone's coming from this. The movie's apolitical on purpose, so being mad at it for being apolitical, I just think is the wrong way to go about it. However, we talked about sound last week, but I think that we should, in retrospect, add Civil War to our sound. Maybe not top 5, but top 7. It definitely, if it was a split year where there's 2 categories, it definitely would make 1. Now that they're combined, maybe it's a little harder, but the sound work in this movie is very, very impressive.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm really looking forward to it, but I'm going in with tempered expectations from what I've heard all over the place. And another thing that has had reviews come out, challengers. Who would have guessed? 88 on Metacritic. I wouldn't have guessed. Would you have guessed?
I'm biased, so yes, but maybe using my critical brain, maybe I wouldn't. But I love everyone who's involved with this film. I
read the screenplay and I was like, this is nothing special. This is nothing special. It's fine. It's just forget. Nope, apparently not. Apparently this is one of the best movies of the year. And I feel like we now have to take it very seriously in multiple categories. Screenplay, Zendaya for Best Actress is a possibility for sure, and score. Score definitely seems like a possibility, which we're going to be talking about today, but I'm just shocked. I'm floored. Had no inkling. I thought it would be well received, but I was like, yeah, maybe 75 on Metacritic. People are going to like it. They're not going to love it, but they love it.
Yeah, I'm really happy to hear that people love it. And I'm really upset because while I enjoy the work that I do, my job calls me from going to the premiere the other night. So I will now be seeing Challengers 3 weeks late instead of seeing it a week and a half early.
Oh, painful.
Very
that
painful.
Hurts. That
hurts.
Very painful. Let's get into the meat of this video because we have to talk about craft categories. And when we talk craft categories, we're talking score, song, makeup, costumes, production design, and to start off, I'm going to talk about my score predictions. And the winner that I have at this point is Conclave. I know you're going to roll your eyes at this, Dylan. You are not a Conclave believer yet, but the CinemaCon reports have fully convinced me. People saying this film just looks stunning. And the main thing that I heard coming out of CinemaCon was the music is haunting. It just lingers with you. That was like every report of the Conclave showing was talking about Volker Bertelmann's score. Yes, he just won for All Quiet. I don't think it matters. I think he can win a second one, especially because at this point, this is the only score this year that I feel like is going to be really like memorable, have something to hold on to. And a lot of these scores that win recently have a theme to them that's just like it sticks in your brain, and Conclave is gonna have that.
I mean, I've come a little bit more around to Conclave since our last video. It is in my Best Picture 10 at my number 10. But for score, I just don't know. I know I made this claim last year, and it didn't end up panning out with Ludwig winning a second so soon. But Ludwig's at least a name across, and Volker, while he has won, I don't know if he's to the point to win a second with his next project.
You're putting way too much importance on people thinking of the names of these composers. It doesn't matter. Like, this is one of the categories. It's like makeup or costume design, where I genuinely don't think voters go, oh, I recognize this name. You know, it's not like with directing, and even in directing, people can win multiple very close together. But I don't think it factors into the equation. And I think last year with Ludwig Göransson shows it doesn't factor into the occasion. Who does the score? It's all that matters is the score itself and the movie. And if Conclave is a big Best Picture contender, which again, I think it's top 5 at this point, it really seems like a really strong follow-up to All Quiet on the Western Front. If it is that big, it can easily win score. And again, it doesn't matter that Volker Bertelmann just won. He can do it again, even as not a massive name. In fact, maybe not being a massive name could help, because Hans Zimmer has such a reputation that they might just go, I don't want to give it to Hans Zimmer. But Volker Bertelmann, people will be like, I don't know that name. I'm not familiar. The next one I have in line is Sing Sing, music done by Bryce Dessner of The National. He's done quite a few musical scores, including Cyrano, which got him in the conversation, didn't get him a nomination, and a lot of Mike Mills stuff. But I do feel like the fact that Sing Sing is so high profile, and the fact that Bryce Dessner has really boosted his profile in recent years, doing a lot of work.
I definitely think Sing Sing is in the conversation. I think it'll be one of those things like Banshees, where is the score the most memorable? Maybe not, but it's, like you said, it's one of the Best Picture top front runners. It's either number 1, number 2, number 3, and this is a category where we always see a carryover from a giant Best Picture nominee find their way in. We saw that last year from American Fiction. We saw with The Fabelmans, where are these scores the most in-your-face showy work? No, but they're good enough to find their way in because of how strong their film is.
All right, the next one I have in line is The Room Next Door. This is the new Pedro Almodovar film. It is still filming. It's about to wrap, but Pedro Almodovar has a ridiculous turnaround time. In fact, Parallel Mothers in 2021, the film was announced in January, shot in March, finished in April, and debuted at Venice in September. And right now, it's looking like The Room Next Door has the same trajectory. There is no composer listed for this yet, but it's almost certainly Alberto Iglesias, who is Almodovar's constant collaborator since 1995, and he has 4 Oscar nominations, most recently for Parallel Mothers in 2021. And with this being Almodovar's first English language film, probably going to be a very big deal if it does make the Oscars this year, then he's coming along for the ride. This just feels like a surefire thing. If you put together a package for The Room Next Door, you got to give it actress, maybe supporting actress, likely a screenplay nomination, and then score is a definite.
Yeah, my biggest holdback is the film coming out. I know we just recently talked about The Apprentice, which wrapped filming in like what, January, February?
It wrapped filming in March.
March, and it is apparently ready to go to Cannes. So we have seen that these very short turnarounds happen. My biggest thing is just once it finishes filming, what's the buzz on it like? Is it ready to go? Does it need a little extra time? Because it could hit TIFF, it could hit Venice sort of thing. And it'll be one of those things like once it's announced, I'll buy it. But until it's announced, I'm going to like hold off on it.
So the next one is Here, which music is by Alan Silvestri. It's another collaboration by the whole Forrest Gump crew, because this is Robert Zemeckis' movie, Tom Hanks, Robin Wright, and Alan Silvestri. And his last nomination, outside of song, he was nominated for a song from the Polar Express, but his last nomination for score was for Forrest Gump. So that's a throwback, major throwback. Since then, Alan Silvestri's really mostly done other Robert Zemeckis movies, which have all been unmemorable. And he's done a lot of Marvel music, including writing the main theme for the Avengers. So not a lot of stuff that could have launched him into the Oscar conversation. But here, this is getting really positive buzz from test screenings, including some of the highest scores from test audiences ever, especially because the last time we heard something like this about the highest audience test scores was 13 Lives, and we ended up taking 13 Lives way too seriously. However, audiences did love 13 Lives. It just didn't connect with the industry. But that one is still incredibly highly rated on IMDb, on Rotten Tomatoes. People really loved that one. And Here is getting similar buzz. Could this still be just an audience thing, not really for the critics? Possibly, but I think a big difference here, 13 Lives kind of got forgotten because it got released in the middle of the summer on Amazon Prime. This is releasing in a prime fall release date in theaters. So if it lands, I would expect the score to come along with it.
That is a very great point to make because, like you said, 13 Lives was dumped in August and also was not really campaigned at all. And it still happened to find its way into the conversation to visual effects and to some other categories like sound, where Here is being pushed. It's in that perfect release date slot like he talked about. It's with a studio that has a pretty good track record for stuff. So, like, as long as the movie's not completely shunned for its use of AI like we talked about last week, I do believe Here could be something like picture 3 or 4 text and maybe 2 acting nominations. It's a giant contender, or it's probably nothing. It's like a wide variety with this film. It's either going to connect across the board or just be the biggest, this had Oscar buzz failure of the year.
And even if it does get shunned for AI and visual effects, the score branch could still go for it, especially just as a way to acknowledge Alan Silvestri's work, because, like I said, he has 1 nomination for score, 1 nomination for song in the past. He is one of those kind of great Hollywood working he's one of those great Hollywood working composers who's just always going, but is not often doing films that allow him to get recognition. And so, to me, that's why I feel like this could be a strong bet, even if the film is not really beloved in other categories for the reasons stated before, artificial intelligence. Horizon, an American Saga, Chapter 1. Music is done by John Debney here. And the primary reason I have this is that Westerns do really, really well in this category. Time after time, Western music, it gets nominated, it has the possibility for these grand orchestral scores that can be stripped back down to acoustics, that have the open, that have visuals to pair with of the open opportunities of the West. These scores can be so epic and big and just catnip for this branch. We see it time and time again. Westerns do well in score. Now, that said, John Debney is not one of the best composers working in Hollywood, which has me a little bit hesitant on this. He primarily works on very forgettable Hollywood films. If you just pull up John Debney's IMDb, it's mostly films that you're like, oh yeah, I heard of that. What happened to that movie? So that's really the whole argument for Horizon. If the movie comes out and it's not getting raves for the score, if it's not making a ton of money, this goes right away. But for now, I like the look. Liking the look of a Western.
So there's a lot of films out there that people are like, oh my gosh, you don't have this in your top 5. So I'm going to rattle off a few and give me your biggest reason why they're excluded from the top 5. So the first one, we talked a lot about Joker last week. Give me a big case for why Joker Folie à Deux is not in your top 5.
Well, you're going to notice if you're looking at my chart right here, it's not just not in my top 5. I don't have it listed. And the reason is it's going to use way too much existing music. And the score, the way it's going to interweave through these pre-existing songs, you just know it's going to use the themes of them. Like, there's no way that they don't intersperse bits of, like, Singing in the Rain. I don't think it will be. I think there's going to be way too much pre-existing music. Plus, it's a sequel score. And the thing that we keep seeing time and time again, sequels don't get nominated unless they're John Williams. That is proven. Like, even last year, Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse should have gotten in there. It had all the precursors. It didn't get in. If you're doing a sequel and you're not John Williams, you're not getting a nomination. The only time since the 1980s when that has been disproven is The Lord of the Rings Return of the King. That's the only time that a non-John Williams score, that a non-John Williams sequel score has gotten a nomination in the score category. So for one thing, Joker gets disqualified. For another thing, it's a sequel score. It's not happening.
So
and that's the same thing for Dune. Same thing for Dune.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm assuming it's the same thing for Dune Part 2, which I know a lot of people out there could make the case that it is the Lord of the Rings film where it's going to overcome that. Hans Zimmer is not John Williams, but is John Williams at the same time. It's very interesting with him where he has all these nominations, yet he always comes up short. But I think Dune Part 2 is either one where it's winning the category or it's not an R5. I don't see it being like a number 2 and number 3 sort of thing. Big other one I know a lot of people have in their top 5 in the moment is Blitz, the new Steve McQueen film. And what's your big X to why you don't have Blitz in your top 5?
Well, there's no composer listed for this one. And Steve McQueen always works with different composers. Every single project he does is like a new person. For example, Oliver Coates did Occupied City, and he also did After Sun and a few other indie movies. Very interesting composer. But then he worked with Mika Levy on Small Axe, and he's worked with Hans Zimmer on both Widows and 12 Years a Slave. So the question for Blitz is just who is doing the music? We don't know at this point, and it really could be anyone. Plus, I'm still shaky on Blitz overall. I don't have the same faith that everyone else does in the film. I don't think it's going to be the big epic that everyone else sees.
And then are there any other scores you really just want to mention here before we move on to our next category?
Let's toss out some challengers. We've got Trent Reznor, Atticus Ross. That would be my number 7 right here. Hearing the score is excellent, but the big question is, can challengers stay relevant to the end of the year? And if it does stay relevant, can it stay relevant in all of the categories, including Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, who frequently do great work and frequently get snubbed? There's also Kinds of Kindness. We got Jerskin Fendrix. Back doing the score after Poor Things, but the film's going to be smaller than Poor Things. And can an anthology film get any nominations? I mean, Buster Scruggs was the last time we saw one happen, and that wasn't in the score category. Also, The Wild Robot. Chris Bowers just got a documentary Oscar last year, and he's due for a score nomination. He has been churning out great work in the music department of films, and the trailer for The Wild Robot looks gorgeous, and it seems like it has a great canvas for exceptional music. Also, this being the animated film frontrunner means that this could play into the score category.
That's going to bring us over to the costume design category, where everything really does stand out because costumes are usually very eye-popping, in your face. And an interesting thing with costumes this year is I feel like this is a very light category overall. Struggling to coming up with a top 10 was a little bit of a struggle for me, so I'm very open to suggestions as we go through this top 5. But starting up at number 1, I do have Dune Part 2. raved about it before. As I talk, I'm just going to pop up a bunch of different costumes from the film up here. And the biggest thing that you'll notice is these are all different from the first film. They are doing something completely new. We've seen sequels win in this category before. Just go back to Black Panther Wakanda Forever just a few years ago, beating major Best Picture nominees. Very showy work in the stuff like Elvis and stuff like Babylon, which wasn't Best Picture nominee, but still very eye-popping in your face. And I don't think Dune Part 2 is going to win every award the first one did. And I don't remember, did Dune Part 1 win costumes last time? So this would be a new category for it to win, which I think is a very possible angle for the film to go on this time around, as winning in categories where it came up short last time, but losing in categories where it won last time, like editing, like cinematography. And this seems like an ample category for it to take the crown.
I disagree with you. I really do. I don't think this is going to be one of the categories that Dune can weasel its way an extra win. There's no way, not a chance in my mind, that it adds on a costume win, especially when, yes, you're right, the costumes are different from the first, but the Oscars always have this sort of mentality of been there, done that. You know, they're going to want to go with something fresh.
They do in other categories, but like Black Panther Wakanda Forever wasn't even doing that much different from the first. It was a different Black Panther suit, and everything else was basically the same there.
I disagree. I think Black Panther Wakanda Forever was much flashier, and they had American streetwear in that. They also had these big fur coats. We saw multiple different cultures. You know, we went to the different tribes around Wakanda, saw the way that they dress. There was a lot going on that was very different in that one. But I guess you did disprove my point right there. I'll take back my statement of them feeling been there, done that, because that's definitely an example against the been there, done that with Black Panther winning too. But Dune is not Black Panther, and I don't think it's going to be flashy enough. Whereas some of the other ones in this category, one that you actually don't even have in your top 5, I would say is going to be the flashiest costumes of the year, whether people like the movie or not.
I know exactly which one you're talking about, which I'll get to here very shortly. Number 2 is a movie where I can easily see it missing our top 5. Just look back to Color Purple last year. But Wicked, I currently have at my number 2 slot. Maybe I'm still predicting it against my better judgment. I also did not think that trailer looked very good overall. But the costumes will be very eye-popping. It's got names attached to it. It's something I could see doing well at the guilds, regardless if the film is well received. And it's not going to have the issue Color Purple had coming out after everything, because it's coming out a whole month before. So it has that extra month to be seen, to get some acclaim for it, because I think the biggest thing that happened to The Color Purple last year was it didn't really get a real campaign, a real push overall. It came out at the very last week of everything, so people who could have seen it maybe just didn't get to it in time, or maybe they saw it and were like, my mind's already made up, I have this stuff. While for Wicked, maybe they don't love it, but they can still appreciate some of the technical elements coming from it. I think back to like Alice in Wonderland sort of thing, where is that film a player above the line? Probably not, but it's still hitting on some of these lower technical nominations where it is just so showy in those categories. And then if you really want to be crazy, you look up to some of the above the line categories, and actress isn't very deep. I wouldn't say Revo's in the 5, but she's in the 10. And this could be a supplement nomination to help that there. I'm not predicting that. But Wicked just seems like it seems kind of good in the costume design category. It's very showy, and that's kind of what you have to go off of this early in the season.
It's showy, but it's also really artificial. And that feels like something that's a big no-no in this category, when the costumes don't feel grounded. They just feel like they're flashy for the point of being flashy. Also, I don't know, I'm still thinking in a lot of these design categories, this could go the way of, like, just to think back to another kind of similar just to think back to another franchise film in this, Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful. It's giving me the exact same kind of energy to it, which is just, it's a blockbuster that has a lot of color, but that's not really going to make a huge difference at the end of the day. I'm sure I can think of more recent examples of films that seem like the costumes are just going to be so flashy at the surface, but they're just artificial and empty. And that's what I'm getting from Wicked all over the place. Artificiality, emptiness.
My number 3 is Nosferatu. The biggest thing here for me is its period. It's going back to an older time. They can be very showy in that department. Obviously, like I said before, my costume design knowledge this year does not feel very strong because I know my number 6 and 7 probably make more sense on paper, but I have those films not hitting as strong as some of these ones above it, so that's why I have them on the outside looking in. But Nosferatu is going to be set in the past. They always like those period type costumes. 4 and 5 are 2 sequels, which 3 sequels seem very weird in this category, but we're in April. It's not like we know all the details going on, but we've seen a trailer for Joker 2, and while yes, there is the Joker costume again, but it looks like he's wearing some different outfits throughout in these imagination sequences. And then we have all the Harley Quinn stuff. That's going to be very showy as well. I don't think this is in the win conversation, but I do think it is in the nomination conversation. And my last one is Gladiator 2 for kind of the same reasons as Napoleon last year. It's going to be very grand. There's going to be so many different costumes, while this will have a little bit more like military, warrior, gladiator type outfits. There's still going to be the rulers, the hierarchy, the rich people of the time, and lots of their like extravagant gowns and stuff. So it's like my shaky number 5 where I can easily replace it, but at this moment it kind of feels good for the number 5 slot.
I agree with you on Gladiator 2. That's going to have a lot of costumes. It's going to have a lot of variance in costumes. And it's the type of period piece that they like to go for. It's a swords and sandals movie. And, you know, that those movies do very well in the costumes category historically, and I think it will here too. Ridley Scott, we've definitely seen over the past few years, he can land a few tech nominations here and there, even if the film's not spectacular. Now, I have to give my argument for why Megalopolis is number 1, because it is, and I think it's very silly that you don't have it top 5, even if you don't think this is going to be a big Best Picture player. They built over 10,000 costumes for this movie. 10,000 costumes. This work is crazy. And look up, there are no stills from the movie yet, but look up set photos. Every costume is just like, whoa, what are you doing there? There's Roman influence. There's like these togas and headpieces, and the hair and makeup kind of goes into the costumes as well. And they're wearing these things that look futuristic but also deeply from the past. They are doing so much in the costumes, and to me it's like Babylon, where even though, you know, with Babylon's production design specifically, even though people weren't huge on the film, there was so much going on with the sets that they had to acknowledge it. And with Megalopolis, I feel the same way in costume design. I feel the same way in production design. There's just so much happening. They did so much. You know, think of the behind the scenes featurettes, or think of them campaigning to costume guilds. Like, this is going to get all of those nominations because all they need to say is, we built over 10,000 costumes. Here's all of our influences. This is what we're drawing from. Bam, nomination. So to me, this is the big costume movie of the year. And at number 7, it's a little silly.
I had it originally in my top 5. I moved it out after recent conversations around the film. At my number 6, though, I do have Maria. It's Pablo Larraín's new film. And I mean, so Jackie got the nomination. Spencer was very close to a nomination, and that's where I have Maria at currently. The biggest thing for this film is I just want to see who picks it up. Is it a priority for them? Is it a number 2 or number 3 for them? Because, I mean, the foundations are there. Actress, original screenplay, score potentially, and then here and costume design, and maybe even makeup and hairstyling as well. There are avenues for this film. I just want to see who's the one pushing it, because, like, let's say, I don't know, Searchlight picks it up. It's probably their priority. But if someone like Netflix takes it, or someone like Neon, it's probably not their number 1 sort of thing. So how many additional nominations can come along with the film? And then just to run out the rest of my 10 is 3 Warner Brothers films. Funny enough, because last year we had Warner Brothers dominating this category when they ended up just getting 1 nomination. But we have Horizon, American Saga Chapter 1, Furiosa, a Mad Max saga. I know 2 sagas right there.
Just to add in one contemporary costume design, just to add in one contemporary choice, Mother Mary. I'm not big on this film. I don't think it's going to be a huge success, but it's set in the world of electronic dance music and fashion. And something that kind of rings out anytime we see a movie that has to do with fashion is that's going to end up being a contender in some way. So, do I expect much out of Mother Mary outside of tech categories? No, but here there could be some outrageous, very interesting costumes to look at. So, worth considering for sure.
It's definitely worth considering. Blitz and Conclave are my 11 and 12. Easily could overtake Beetlejuice and Furiosa if I do want to make any minor adjustments there. At least to me, for Mother Mary, is just I don't think A24 will actually campaign the movie much at all, and that's my big reservation for it is, well, I do see people's arguments. I also feel like this is a film where I know the Academy is changing with their taste. This is not a film appealing to really many people over 30, so I just will want to see the trailer come out. I want to see it hit a festival. What are the initial reactions? Is it something where like, oh, it's so youth skewing that older audiences aren't paying it mind a day, or is it so youth skewing but the older audiences can still find something to like in the film? Maybe the things they like are the costumes, maybe the things they like are the music, maybe the things they like are the performances. It's just one of those things where I can see it going two different ways. I am just of the belief of this is like A24's fourth or fifth movie in their slate, and a year where A24's lineup is pretty weak to begin with, and just don't see them really giving much energy, because if Priscilla was their third or fourth last year and that failed to get any nominations, I don't really see where Mother Mary can really get any nominations outside of one category, which we'll talk about later, much attention anywhere else.
Well, and Mother Mary isn't even Priscilla level. You know, that was Sofia Coppola, and it was an Elvis movie, and that was their fourth contender, because they had Past Lives, Zone of Interest, Iron Claw, all before it. And Priscilla, number 4. So yeah, to me, this is waves at best. And like you said, if the older audiences don't like it, I think it's specifically because of the music, because it's going to be very, very youth skewing music. So that's kind of the argument against Mother Mary, is that it's just not for that specific demographic which votes in the Academy. So let's move over to Best Production Design, and right now I have a big toss-up between 1 and 2 here. Don't know which one's going to win, but I'm tossing up between the musical sequences and the very big production design that we saw in Joker Folie à Deux's trailer last week. Those sets are massive, and they are stunning, and they are big musical set pieces that honestly, musicals do very, very well in the production design category. It's got that sort of element of fantasy, but then it also has the grounded reality of Arkham Asylum, of the streets of Gotham. There's a lot here to chew on, a lot here that could play really well to voters. But then I'm also tossing up Megalopolis, which is my number 2. It has massive, massive city scenes. You know, they build an entire new city on top of New York. And it's made of this material that's going to be very interesting to see how they represent on screen visually. This is obviously, to me, going to be one of the visual achievements of the year and the achievements in production design this year, because the sets that they're going to have to build for Megalopolis are going to be stunning, like beyond comparison. However, it could be Babylon, where some people just dislike the movie so much that even though it seems undeniable as a production design winner, it could just miss out on the win, go home completely empty-handed. Although I do think it wins costume design, whether or not people hate it.
I agree that I have Joker as my number 1. I think for all the cases that you made, that trailer just looks so fantastical, so grand, that it's definitely my number 1 for the time being. In Megalopolis, while I have it outside in costume design, I do have it in for production design at this moment.
So the next one I have here is Dune Part 2. It's not going to repeat the first and win the category. There's not enough new stuff in the movie. Although Getty Prime is really beautiful, it's more of an achievement in cinematography than it is in production design. It's not going to repeat the win, but it definitely will repeat the nomination.
I could see it miss. This is the category where I think Dune is most vulnerable of all the texts.
I disagree.
I don't know.
disagree.
I guess, like, what would you say is more vulnerable than
Cinematography, score. Both of those have track records of not double nominating.
I'm not counting score because if it's ineligible, I don't think that counts in terms of being vulnerable sort of thing.
Well, so then cinematography.
I guess cinematography. I don't know. I just feel like production design is an easy spot where you could replace it because, like you'll talk about in your list, there's a lot of options here.
There are a lot of options, but Dune just seems really strong. And again, they're no strangers to double nominating films that have shown up in the past. But my next one is Blitz. And the argument here is the rubble and the intricate recreations of wartime British life. It's not just going to be about the broken buildings and the concrete on the streets. It's going to be about what is in people's homes, the way that they have their lives set up. Finally, in the category, I have Conclave, and this is really just because it's going to be big, grand sets. They had to recreate the Vatican because, as far as I know, they didn't shoot in the Vatican, so they would have had to build all of that somewhere else, making these massive cathedrals, this feeling of religious grandeur. It feels like if this film is big, it just makes it into this category for sure.
And then what's your next in line?
After that, I have Gladiator 2 right on the outside. You could easily swap this in with either Blitz or Conclave, but I have to have Gladiator 2 miss a few of the texts because, again, I don't think it's going to be that big. I have it in costumes, have it in visual effects. I need to have it miss here. So there are going to be massive sets for this one, but it's possible that the reliance on CGI in the backdrops could sort of take away from it, although that could also be an argument against Megalopolis, against Dune Part 2, Nosferatu. You're going to be glad to see this in my top 10, Dylan, because it's not in many of my top 10s. But here definitely makes sense because Eggers' films have an attention to detail in building the past as this sort of mythical thing that still feels realistic and grounded. And also, it's possible that they're going to take into consideration some influences from the German expressionist movement of cinema, which the original Nosferatu is from. So we could see some of those dramatic painted shadows on these sets. Potential for this one to have stunning production design.
Yeah, I both of those films are ones I'm definitely considering as well. My biggest take against Gladiator 2, in addition to yours, is just how many follow-ups can we have? How many giant, large-scale sceneries can we have? Because, I mean, Gladiator 2 is going to be one of those, Dune's one of those, Megalopolis is one of those, and Blitz could easily be one of those as well. So, like, we need some variety in this category, and I think if you have to remove one, Gladiator is the avenue you would go to, and for all the reasons you supported Nosferatu there, I just think we talked about at the beginning of this episode, we need a more international skewing film, and I think that Nosferatu can easily fill this place as being something that's similar to the first Joker that European critics just adore, and they love the craft work of the film. And while I'm not saying Nosferatu is an 11 nomination movie, they can bump it up in some of these technical categories.
I disagree with what you say about European skewing. I don't think this is going to be a huge hit with the European critics, European audiences. You know, if you're looking for that, I'd go with like The End or something like that. Specifically, if you're looking for that in like production design. But I don't think we need one of those. But I don't think we need one of those European criticky films to make it into the production design category.
I wasn't saying just for production. I was saying the overall films, and if you're supporting the film and picture, other nominations will come with it. And if it is a picture nomination, I feel like production design is a necessary nomination for that film, where if it's not picture, it obviously doesn't need the category. That is now going to bring us over to the makeup and hairstyling category. And since we are kind of a ways in this video, I'm going to kind of speed through this one because, at least to me, this is one that we desperately need stills, photos, videos of to properly assess. But the one film that we have all seen is what I have at number one, not just because we've all seen it, but because of how much work they are doing inside the film. And that is with Dune Part 2. I've said this since last year of the work they're doing on the Harkonnen. It's a lot more visually in your face this time around. I think that will go a long way, as well as the tattoos on Lady Jessica, as well as the dirt on all the Fremen. It's just all coming together with a film, like I kind of said over in the costume design category. It's an award you did not win the first time around. It's not repeating wins. It's doing something new. It's doing something fresh. I don't think it's going to win all the awards it won the first time around, but I can definitely see it winning awards that it did not this time around. Then I have two films that could go two ways. The Academy could give them attention, or they could just ignore them entirely. It's Wicked, it's Nosferatu, both again carrying over from the costume design category. I mean, Wicked has green face. That's going to be something very clear in your face. Will they like it? Will they not? That's the real question.
They won't.
If they like it, it gets in. If they don't, it's not even making the short list.
It's not a question. It looks awful. The trailer, the makeup, just awful.
I don't disagree.
See a world where this happens.
I don't disagree with you, but the makeup and hairstyling branch is not afraid to nominate awful makeup and hairstyling year in and year out.
But the only thing that they did in this was just painting Cynthia Erivo green. And it's not like there's much more. It's not like it's Suicide Squad where there's like textures or anything. Or Guardians of the Galaxy, which had some awesome makeup on like Drax and everything. It's the same type of thing where you're like changing someone's entire skin. But with this, it's just like an ugly pale green. I don't think it's
just going to be her, though. I think it's going to go over to like the Munchkins. It's going to go over to the people of Oz. It's going to be a lot of stuff where maybe kind of like Elvis, the central one is not the best one, but everything else is working. And like I said, I can easily see it missing even the short list. But until we get more stills, until we get more trailers, I think it would be remiss for me not to include it in my top 5. And Nosferatu is kind of doing the same thing in the opposite direction. While it's not painting someone green, it's going to make someone look very pale, as well as a rest of an ensemble, fitting them into a time period. And then 4 and 5 is where I can get a little bit crazy with the category. We always see this category have non-Best Picture nominees, and they love very showy, very in-your-face, very grand work. And, I mean, we've seen this film. Maybe it's a little biased here, but Sasquatch Sunset could be a potential film, and I think its biggest hurdle is making the shortlist sort of thing. And while I think it's kind of crazy for me to predict it now, I like doing crazy things when we're this far out because we don't know any better. And I just think it's doing a lot of impressive work that is very, 1, on a budget, 2, very different from what we've seen before, and 3, making the actors unrecognizable. All things that this category does like in the past. The biggest hurdle is how small of a film this is, but I can easily see a route where if it connects with critics early on, they give it love, they can keep in the conversation all season long.
I respect the boldness. It's way too small of a film to get in, and it's way too weird of a film. It's like offensively weird to a lot of people. I can't see people in the Academy making it through Sasquatch Sunset, much less nominating it.
That is very fair, and my number 5 kind of falls in the same line there. We talked about the visual effects in here changing their ages throughout, but part of that is going to have to be the makeup as well to help aid the visual effects in the process. Because obviously you could just have Tom Hanks sit here, but if you add little elements, it will make the transition over a little easier, as well as the hairstyling. Maybe I'm completely wrong in this assessment, but at least in my brain, how stuff goes in, this would have to play a part into that as well. My number 6 film is one that a lot of people currently are predicting, but I don't really see it, and that's A Different Man. I think that the buzz for this film has kind of already came and went with its premiere. Obviously, it's not out in release yet. Maybe it has a resurgence once it officially comes out, but even when it first had its showcase, I didn't feel like the buzz was high enough for it to continue, and I just don't see how the film will carry through. Maybe you can use the same argument against Sasquatch Sunset, but that film is also coming out in wide release the weekend that we are releasing this video, 1,000+ theaters. Maybe it crashes and burns. Maybe people see it and there's sort of a push for it. It's getting a wide theatrical release this weekend. Yep.
It's going to get an F on Cinema Score. I swear to God.
It could. I don't know. We'll have to see. I didn't really love the film, but I do think the makeup and the hairstyling are angles for the film to receive praise and have been receiving them so far. Am I going a little far with saying Oscar nomination? Maybe, but that's the fun of this, because the rest of my category here I don't feel great about, and that's Joker, Folia Da, Beetlejuice, Furiosa, and Maria. All have potential angles, but none of their angles feel as fun, as strong as what I have currently above it. But this is another category, just like costumes, where yes, you can predict based off of who the designers are. Yes, you can predict based off what the films are. But it's very much stuff that you need visual aid, because you could say, like, oh, X legendary costume designers on this film, X legendary makeup and hairstylist is doing this film, and you see the work, and it's very in your face. It's very bland. It's whatever. Where with other categories like production design or cinematography, yes, it helps seeing visuals, but also when you see Roger Deakins, you know, oh, it's a contender.
So I don't understand why you have Joker at 7 and Wicked at 2. We've seen the makeup from both of these, and I think both of us would say the Joker makeup looks just as good as the first one, whereas Wicked looks like shit. It does not look good. So I really think you should swap those two, specifically because the whole reason the first Joker got nominated was they did a big presentation about how difficult it was to work with Joaquin Phoenix and how they succeeded at doing everything despite Joaquin Phoenix being very difficult in the makeup chair. And with this one, they have that again, but they also have more makeup. They have people who are inspired by Joker. They have Gaga, who seems to have increasingly wild makeup throughout the film. If it got the nomination for the first one, I don't see why it wouldn't get it for the second one when it's doing more.
I guess to me, at least, the trailer gives off more of the same, while on the other hand, Dune is doing more, but it's very different more. It's more dirt with the Fremen, it's more Harkonnen, it's more this, while with Joker, while there's more people doing the Joker makeup, it's still just the essential basic Joker lipstick and white paint face.
I suppose so, but we are both thinking this film is likely bigger than the first movie. And if so, it can overcome. Really? I really have a feeling this is bigger than the first movie, and even if it is the same level as the first movie, it still gets this nomination.
I think it switches some of its nominations from the first to the second, because like we both don't have it in score, but I think it can pick up a song in its place. I don't currently have it in actor, but I have it getting an actress sort of thing. So like I have it trading nominations, because the first one got 11 back in the day, and getting 11 here with the exclusion of score and the exclusion of another category would be kind of hard to hit here.
So let's move over to the song category, and instead of doing a top 10 here, we can't really make a top 10 till we know what songs exist, and we don't know what songs exist. So now we're going to play a game called What Movies Are Going to Have Songs? So let's just go through some of them and talk about what songs they might have, who might write them, and why they might be contenders. So first off, I know you feel very strongly about Lady Gaga writing a song for Joker Folia Da.
I do, and I mean, the initial report that came out, it was either Deadline or Variety. There's between 12 or 16 older songs, but there's strong belief that there is a Gaga song in there, and I think if there is a Gaga song, it's automatically a nomination. A win's another question, but if she's having a song in the movie, it can even be a credit song. She's going to get the nomination.
I'm not so sure about that, because with so many major big songs from the past, the classics, they're using like jazz standards, George Gershwin, they're going to be using like Irving Berlin, George Gershwin, Irving Berlin, like all these Broadway standards are going to be throughout the film. The big risk that is run there is, what if whatever song Gaga writes for it doesn't A, fit into the vibe of the movie, or B, it doesn't stand up to the majesty of these major songs that they're using throughout. Like, what if it's just overshined by Singing in the Rain?
That could all be true, but if Joker's a top 5 film in Best Picture, when's the last time a top 4 film in Best Picture had an original song and didn't make the lineup? They still make their way in, even if the songs aren't memorable, aren't contenders, or not contenders. They still make it in if they aren't memorable or aren't in your face. I mean, look at Trial just a few years ago. No one knows about that song, and it still got in it, and it was probably number 2 in the category.
I think it should have won. That was one of my favorite songs of that year. But I can't think off the top of my head what the last like top 5 Best Picture movie that didn't get a song nomination, if it had a song, was.
Like even Everything Everywhere did.
I wish, yeah, I wish I could think of it right now, but I feel like you're wrong. I just can't prove it.
It's just one of those things where even if the song is a dumpster fire, which believing a Lady Gaga song is not going to fit or not going to work, she's probably one of the most talented or best writers out there, sort of thing.
You are right. And Lady Gaga, she isn't just a pop star. She also has done multiple jazz albums with Tony Bennett through the years. You know, she is no stranger to music, very similar to the music that's going to be in Joker Folie à Deux. I still have doubts that she's going to write a song at all. You know, like it's rumored. People are like, oh, we're expecting her to because she's on the movie. But I also kind of have a feeling that she's going to be that because she's acting in it, she's going to be wanted to take serious. She's going to want to be taken seriously as an actor, not as a songwriter. The same way that with House of Gucci, she decided not to write a song for that. Not because they didn't ask her, but because she wanted to be seen as an actor, not as a songwriter.
That's very fair. And that's why I said the only holdback would be if there is no song. But currently the reports are saying there's going to be a song. And I mean, yes, she didn't do one for House of Gucci, but the other film that she did that involved her singing in the movie, she did do a song for, being A Star Is Born. And she did multiple songs where if the rules were different, she could have had 2 or 3 nominations from that movie, but instead just got the one. But talking about adding music to pre-existing iconic songs, we have Wicked, where we've seen in the past these musicals will add a song. Color Purple did it last year, did like 2 or 3 songs, just none of them really stood out. Les Mis did it, it got nominated. So it really seems like when these films are picture players, their songs come along. When they're not picture players, their songs don't come along. Mm-hmm. We both don't believe Wicked's a picture player, so we both probably don't have the song involved. But I think it really comes down to, one is, what is the state of the race of song this year? Because like if it's last year where song is very weak, I could see this slip its way in, like how John Baptiste did for American Symphony, even though his documentary did not make the short list, where, like, let's say it's Ariana Grande who gets the song. She's a name. I know pop singers don't always have a best track record, but if it's a in the movie song, maybe that can come along. If it's a credit song, I'm not going to buy this at all.
Quick fact check. American Symphony did get the short list, just didn't get the nomination.
Oh, sorry. That's what I meant. Did not get the nomination.
Mm-hmm. You're totally right, and I do currently have Wicked in my like prospective lineup just because I don't know what else there is. But at the end of the year, I don't think Wicked will make it in because, again, time after time, we see these movie musical added songs not make it in. Again, Color Purple, Cats, Dear Evan Hansen.
In the Heights.
In the Heights, yes, over and over and over. You add a song, no one gives a shit.
Our next film we're talking about is Moana 2. Does not have Lin-Manuel Miranda back, but I honestly think that works to the film's favor because it will be doing something completely new with the music. I mean, the first Moana has 3-4 iconic tracks. Will be hard to replicate that here, but with a new voice involved, maybe there is an avenue for it to happen. Again, this is very much just like, gotta believe me here, but from everything I've been told, Disney's very confident in this movie. That's why they're pushing it to theaters. That's why they are rushing it to come out this year, is they believe in the product they have. And I'm assuming if they believe so strong in the product, a product that is a musical at its core, it has to have at least one catchy or good tune. And I feel like that tune, regardless if it's Moana singing it, if it's Maui singing it, or if it's a new character singing it, would connect to get its way into this nomination.
Dude, wouldn't it be so funny if Moana 2 won an Oscar for song and Lin-Manuel Miranda missed it again? Because he's just cursed with the Oscars at this point. Because Moana would have gotten him an Oscar win if it didn't come out the same year as La La Land. Mm-hmm. And then time and time again, he gets nominated in the worst years. Or, 2021, if it was We Don't Talk About Bruno that was nominated, not Dos Oruguitas, then he would have gotten the win.
I don't know if I fully buy that. I think it would have been close, but...
It would have been close, but I think he would have won just based on the popularity of the song and the narrative around, oh, it's Lin. It's Lin, and the song's the biggest in the world right now. the specter of Diane Warren looming over us. What is she going to have this year? What's it going to be? Well, Diane Warren, we can say guaranteed she will have a nomination this year. And personally, I believe it's going to be for the song that she wrote for her documentary. Yes, her documentary, the documentary about Diane Warren called Diane Warren Relentless. I don't know what the song's called, though I think the song's probably called Relentless. But she feels so confident that she's going to win the Oscar this year. And I think it's just because it's an ego trip of a movie, just being like, oh, Diane Warren.
I mean, look at the competition right now. There's no La La Land type song. There's no giant contender who's poking their head out, who dominates the whole season like we tend to have in this category, barring Gaga having a song on Joker. So, like, maybe this is her year, and it would be funny that her win is for a song from her own documentary that's titled Relentless, because she's relentless in her quest to win a actual Academy Award. Would be kind of funny. But I think that we can peg her in for a slot, but a win is always something that is really hard to believe until it's going to happen.
And then we have to go to the Diane Warren adjacent movies, aka films that just feel like they should have a song written by Diane Warren, and that is The Fire Inside, also known as Flint Strong. This feels like it's going to have a song. It's the name, The Fire Inside. That was the name of Diane Warren's last nominated song for Flamin' Hot. And so this one just automatically feels like Diane Warren core.
Yeah. It feels like core, but this is definitely not a movie Diane Warren would ever touch. No. But it does feel like it would have, maybe not like a Diane Warren adjacent song, but like I could see this having like, I don't know, it's a movie about a boxer. I feel like it could be like something where it has like a rap type song, but it's not like a full rap type song, like a rap pop type song.
It feels like this one could have like her do a song for it.
Or like, some R&B could work too.
Yeah, it's one of those where I'm like, it just feels like you're going to have like a motivational track from like her or Mary J. Blige, like just someone who's like beloved by the Grammys is going to do a track for this. That's the vibe.
Well, we just talked about The Fire Inside, which got renamed from Flint Strong, but it is a script pinned by Barry Jenkins. But he didn't direct it because he's directing Mufasa, a Lion King story, or whatever the actual title is for it. But the
Lion King saga.
Saga, there we go. But the big thing with this one is
saga this year.
The music is not being done by Hans Zimmer and company. It's got a completely new team behind it. Nicholas Britell is doing the score, which, I mean, we didn't really talk about Up in Score, but I think is definitely something that is not being taken serious, that definitely should be being taken serious.
Yeah, I should have mentioned that.
He is someone who the Academy hasn't awarded with a win, but he's always in the conversation for a nomination with whatever his big score is each year. And if Mufasa clicks, I could see this getting 2 nominations depending on where the Academy stands with its animated feature eligibility, because the first one was arguably probably number 6 that year. It's just, did people consider it? Disney definitely didn't consider it. They didn't push it for it, and it still got almost like every precursor. So like, if this movie's really good, it could get into song, it could get into score, and could find its way into some other categories too. Hey, all that matters for the song category is you got the voice. And speaking of having the voice, I don't remember, maybe this is Mandela Effect. I feel like Pharrell's been a judge on The Voice, and he's got a documentary about himself coming out this year called Piece by Piece, which is going to be in the style of Lego. Interesting little combination, but feels so Pharrell in it. But again, we talked about before, Pharrell has made music for movies before, and generally it is not really considered at all, but maybe this song could be Pharrell's next hit and could get some real consideration.
Well, this is your Jon Batiste of this year, where you just have this beloved producer, songwriter who has a documentary about him, and he's writing music for it, so it just feels like an easy nomination slot. Normally songs like that don't get nominated, but in weak years they do, and this year does look comparatively weak for the song category. So this could easily slide in, but it could be booted out, especially by the next one that we're going to talk about, which is Mother Mary. Songs are being written by Jack Antonoff, who is Taylor Swift's main man, the main producer of basically every pop star in the game, not just Taylor Swift. He's working with everyone. Like, he works with Rodrigo. He works with Lorde. He works with Lana Del Rey. Everyone gets music from Jack Antonoff.
Yeah, he's one of those producers who seems to be everywhere, and it's just really, it will be interesting this award season to see, does that carry over to the film scene, or is it just one of those things where, like, obviously the Grammys love him, but it's not going to connect in this demographic?
It's very, very possible that it won't, because it could just be very light pop music. But he just has a way of writing the perfect songs for whoever sings them.
Well, we talked a little bit before about in-credit songs, and Sing Sing is one that people have heard. I haven't seen anyone say, oh my gosh, I love this song, but they say they at least notice that there's a song and that it's not something that they've heard before, that is something new. And if Sing Sing is a picture contender, it can find its way into this song category where it's like, hey, we just love your movie, so here's a nomination. But I don't think this is in like the win consideration or anything like that.
Not an end credit song, but a song from The End should be mentioned. The End is a musical, so there could be some music in this that really fits. And even if this is Annette, even if this is way out there and just like not accessible to voters whatsoever, even Annette did get shortlisted for the song So Can We Start?
That should have been a nomination, regardless of your thoughts on the film. That song, so good, especially inside the movie. But yeah, I mean, it's one of those things where, like, if the movie connects, it's an easy nomination. But if the movie's ignored altogether, it's still probably hitting the shortlist. Speaking of no strangers, we don't want to be strangers to all of you out there. So now it's time for our question segment here of the show. And I feel like this first one isn't really a real question, but it's one I want to give a shout out to. This one comes from the shorts, and it's this comes from Mercurial Hypersprite, and they are glad that the incel god is getting a girlfriend and won't be seeing his friend group for the next 6 months. Am I right, homies? And yeah, I think the Joker 2 trailer does look very fun, as Matt is loving this first comment that we have this week.
Oh, next one. Next one we have someone saying that they think that they disagree with what we said, that Dune Part 2 might not be taken seriously because obviously, you know, last time they did take it seriously, they just didn't give Villeneuve a nomination. I am going to say when I say they're not going to take it seriously, I don't mean they're going to overlook it fully. I just mean that there's always certain things holding back action movies. Always. Something just stands a little bit in the way where people go, oh, but is it real cinema? Is it real cinema? And I do think it's going to hit Dune. Now, you could argue, Matt, but you keep saying Joker's going to be a huge movie with the Oscars, and that's a sequel to a comic book movie. Yes, but it's a musical, and it's a musical that pays homage to all these Golden Age Hollywood things. So to me, the difference is that Dune, it's still a blockbuster regardless, and it's a middle chapter. There's no way the momentum keeps going from where it was in March. It's already like a thing of the past right now.
I don't know if I particularly agree with that last sentiment there, but that comment comes from Jason Huff, and I would agree with him a little bit. I think that if we are predicting it to get some of these nominations, it needs to be taken seriously in director this time around, sort of thing. And I just feel like it really goes down to how Warner campaigns the movie. Are they campaigning it by having him go out there and saying, hey, this is the end of this story? Is this the culmination of this particular arc? And then, yes, we have Messiah coming down the line, but that is a completely different story years down the line. It may be 10 years away, sort of thing. If they make it about how Villeneuve needs to be recognized now, I think it could be a success. If they don't, like they did with the first one, but like, oh yeah, well, he has another movie coming out in like 2 years, then obviously they aren't going to be rushing out there to give him love, give him nominations, stuff along those lines.
For the record, I do still have him getting a nomination for this one. I just don't think it's going to have the momentum to win at the time that the ceremony takes place, because I don't know. Maybe it was a hyperbole to say it's already a thing of the past because, like, I mean, obviously there's nothing to talk about right now. So, like, because obviously, you know, we're not in awards season. It's going to come back. There's going to be more talk about it down the road. I don't think it's going to be top of mind to vote for him to win Best Director. But I do think they'll take it seriously enough to give him a nomination this time.
Our next question comes from Arthur, and they are saying they have Kinds of Kindness somewhere in their top 13 for cinematography. Most predictors, like ourselves, seem to be counting the movie out completely. But he's talking about how they have 3 different distinctive types of cinematography, including black and white, which all can be true. But just the way that Searchlight is positioning this movie to come out in the early summer gives signs that, hey, this isn't going to be really the top of their priority list. Because if we go to other Yorgos films in the past, Favorite, Poor Things both came out in the fall. His weirder movies always go to Cannes, and the Cannes movies usually top out 1 nomination. Maybe that's cinematography, but if Kinds of Kindness shows up anywhere, I think it would be the original screenplay category, just like The Lobster. And our final question comes from No Pundit Intended, saying that they have been on the Nosferatu train for a while. Well, thank you for joining me. But the bit of news about Eggers enlisting a glass company to manufacture special filters that he can achieve a unique color palette, sort of like what Cameron did for Avatar and Nolan did for the IMAX black and white for Oppenheimer, is going to make for some great for your consideration featurettes, and that I fully agree with everything that you said there.
Hey, great point. I didn't know about the making new lenses. That definitely has me even more excited. I'm taking Nosferatu very seriously in cinematography, even though I'm not in many other categories, while you definitely are, Dylan.
I definitely am, but like we always say here, we've reached the end of the episode. We would love to have your questions out there for next time. If you made it this far in the video, looking at the audition timestamp, we're around 1 hour 40, so I'll be interested to see where this video gets down to in the post-edit. Definitely drop down your comments down below. Give us a like, a dislike if you didn't like what you've had to hear for the last hour and a half, and make sure to subscribe because we have new predictions coming each and every week. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and this has been Fantasy Filmball.